You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello friends, and welcome to episode 87 of Beyond the Verse, Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce, and today we are calling this episode Welcome to 4.0. I hope this finds everybody well. Clearly, this is going to be all about 4.0. Let's just get into the segments real quick. We're going to be talking about the letter from the chairman. We're going to be going over the Guardian, the Paladin Q&A. We're going to touch a little bit on Luminalia and how it's doing. I think we're on day 9 or 10 at this point. And then we're going to be giving away our cutter with Icebreak Livery item given to us by CIG for you in the community at the end of this episode. I don't even know where to begin. So I had this whole show notes process operation going down from last recording all the way up to about Wednesday. I read the tea leaves and did not predict 4.0 would launch, and so I had this whole show scheduled around other things. And last night at 11 p.m. U.S. Central, they decided to drop 4.0. So it impacted Org Night. We were sitting around doing Save Stanton, kind of waiting to see if they were going to drop it because of the intel and the information that was being shared on Spectrum, and they did. So we weren't able to make our jump as an org from Stanton to Pyro last night, but we're going to be doing that tonight. But everything hit in the wee hours of last night and this morning. So we have a lot to get to, and I'll be very honest with each one of you. This is going to be very improv. It's going to be very ad-libbed, and I'm going to go by the seat of my pants, and we're going to get through this together. But it's all good, information. We're going to be covering a lot of bases today. So I again hope this finds you well. Strap in for the ride. It's going to be one hell of a ride. Yeah, it was funny. So again, last night I'm with almost 30 members of Soul Provision, and we had no idea what was happening. We had intel that came to us about it potentially dropping that night. So, we weren't going to do the White Elephant gift exchange because nothing was going to persist into 4.0. So that was already shot. We have several members who still needed Save Stand, but now there's this question of if you've got 324.3 live simultaneously with 4.0 live, can you still theoretically do all the phases of Save Stanton? Or now that 4.0's launched, can you not do 1 through 4? The phases 1 through 4 now. All the questions. I have a lot of questions. So we wanted to catch everybody up. And again, 11 p.m. it hits, and we were kind of beside ourselves. The patch, just my experience from late last night and very early this morning, it's smooth as heck. Now, brand new servers, I recognize that dynamic, but getting into Orison, I spawned right into my hangar as expected. You don't spawn into your habs at this current moment, so you spawn into your hangar, and I had 30 plus FPS, server FPS. It was smooth. I was able to call up ships very quickly. The ASAP terminals weren't delayed. It didn't have weird glitching functionality, like when you scroll all the way down to the bottom and actually scrolls. So it was all great. I ended up pulling up the Mirai Guardian because that also hit last night. I don't know. It's hard to say my first impressions. Everything was great. And then this morning I made a Mirai Guardian video for TikTok and for X, showing a minute worth of a walk around and from the outside and the interior. It's a beautiful ship. We're going to get into more of it later on, but my experience with 4.0, just like a lot of other people, is not extensive, at least not in this quote-unquote live build. So we'll be getting into everything I just said. bear with us. This will be an hour and a half, almost a 2-hour podcast. I have zero doubt. Let's get into from the community and just go from there.
Incoming message.
Slowly but surely, let's get through this show. All right, at the end of every episode, we do a Spotify poll, and we do, obviously, we open up the comments section. I did not do a poll last week because I wanted to test something out. I wanted to see, like, most of my effort polls going into X and just getting that dialogue. But I did get some pushback. I got some of you that said that you really look forward to these polls on Spotify, so I will continue mission. And you will get polls on Spotify. So today's poll is going to be, where did you check, or what did you select as your primary residence going into 4.0? Did you choose Stanton or did you choose Pyro? And if so, which planet system did you choose? Now, I'm going completely off of memory, so bear with me. But in Pyro, you can choose either Ruin Station, Checkmate Station, or Obituary. And again, this is where the memory comes in. I believe Obituary is the orbital station outside of Bloom. You've got Ruin Station, which is right outside of Terminus. And then you've got Checkmate Station, which is right outside of Modex. And I'm very confident that I'm right in those three. So those three are now options for you to join. And of course, all of Stanton. I continued with Stanton, and I chose Orison because of the lore behind Soul Provision. And I also don't want to always spawn into a PvP risky area in order to get items. So I think Stanton is the right way, and then I'll make my temporary residence or my region point, I'll make that wherever I need it to be. So one of the 3 stations in Pyro, if I, spend time there. So there's the poll for today. In the comments section, I would love to hear what you're doing first in 4.0. You're starting out with like 20,000 to 40,000 UEC, not the millions that carry over from patch to patch. So what are you doing? Are you starting off small? Are you doing bounty hunting missions? Are you just kind of getting your feet wet? Excuse me, that was great. Or are you testing your luck and going and exploring with a little bit of UEC to refuel, which I would not recommend doing, because Pyro is huge. You're going to have to worry about refueling on very little UEC. So I'm just curious. I'm curious what your plans are. Let me know in the comments section, either in YouTube or over in Spotify. Some great conversations to be had. Last episode, again, did not have a poll, but we did have a comment section. Let me just go through those real quick. Sharing my screen for those of you on YouTube and video Spotify. First one is Down Bad PK, quote, as a temporary fix, having spawns set at hangar absolutely makes sense. I'm not sure if there are purchasable beds, but if there were, we could go as far as setting up our own suites in the corners of our hangars. Long term, it would be nice to have a built-in modular suite with a full kitchen and bathroom that we can customize to some level. Absolutely. I think when there's base building and base building comes online, I feel like a lot of those tools and resources and assets could be absolutely used inside of your hangar. Now, whether or not there's a gridlocking like section designated and I guess deliberately tells you where you can build, I can't imagine them allowing you to build rooms out on the hangar floor. So there's got to be some guardrails. There's got to be some left and right limits. But I think very well could be both base building, obviously, up in orbital stations, base building on planet side, and of course a potential with base building inside of your hangar. Give me 1 second. Quickly, last weekend I had a huge sinus infection, still recovering from it. So of course that drainage, as yummy as that sounds, still is jacking up my throat. So bear with me this episode. We'll get through it together. Next quote, Michael James Bolton. I wanted to comment on hangar spawning. Great. I wanted to comment on hangar spawning. I think if it had a small studio apartment in the hangar, it'd be cool. But when we get base building and small camper home building, then that will eliminate queue times, correct? Because I will want to spawn at my base in my home, not a station. Also with 4.0 close, would now be a good time to do org battles as we wait for 4.0. Well, the last piece I mean, that's kind of shot. 4.0 launched last night. In 2025, we are working with a couple of major orgs to have org battles and to do some really awesome cross-org things with Supervision. Stand by for that. There's some exciting things. Can't wait to share that with you. But for the first piece, I think we already covered that. Personally, I think you're going to launch into your hangar to start 4.0, but then to your point, you're going to spawn out of a Mirai Guardian. You're going to spawn out of your ship. You're going to spawn out of an orbital station to get away from your primary residence for the most part. I think most people do that. I think that will solve that problem. I will say this. I'm going to double down on what I said a couple episodes ago. I don't like spawning in your hangar for the lore and the RP reasons. I liked feeling like I woke up in an apartment and going through the elevator and going through Orison. For instance, I've logged into the game twice now in 4.0 and have yet to see outside of my hangar. That kind of sucks, right? Like, I don't know. It's good for the tech piece. It's good for handling some of that bottlenecking, but it is what it is. Anna says, I'm mainly just going to explore for December. Dang it, have no good pyroable ship. I love that adjective. Yeah, you have to have a jump drive, right? And you have to have a massive fuel tank. So if you're in Stanton, you have to have a jump drive to get to, right, Pyro. And then once you're in Pyro, you got to have the fuel reserves to make it from point A to point B. If you don't, it's going to suck. So you absolutely have to either go with an org, or you're going to have to get yourself a ship that is exploration based or has a massive fuel tank. So keep us updated. I want to know how it works for you the next couple of days. All right, Bravo 1. I'll take my space steak medium rare. Excited to do some exploration. I'm on Pyro and find all the cool things. 100%. Curious, Bravo 1, and really anybody else out there, how are you going to handle exploration? Because we were talking as an org of like touring Pyro and exploring from planet to planet, but like, how does one do that? Do you arrive at Bloom and then just randomly select a location to a quantum drive to? And when you get to that location, do you just like fly a sortie around the location and go back? And then I don't know, like how does one explore in the current state of the game? Super curious. And then last, we have Melly J. I am going to die on this podcast. There we go. All right, so Melly J. Totally liked the polling here on Spotify. This is one of those comments that I'm taking to heart. Totally like the polling here in Spotify. Please don't discount it. I have zero presence on X, so I won't see polls unless it's linked in Discord. I might be an outlier, yet a data point for your consideration as you keep polling here, or as to keep polling here. Perhaps you can poll the same questions in both platforms. Just a simple copy and paste, plus you can have a broader data set. Again, it's not that I'm discounting anybody else's voice. It was more like, for me, time and effort is a finite resource. And so I'm just trying to figure out like where's the best bang for my buck that gets the most voice of my community heard. And so when I ask a poll on Spotify, I get like 5 responses. I get like 10 responses. But when I ask a poll on Twitter, which you're going to see in a couple of seconds, when I ask a poll on Twitter, I get 600 responses, right? It's a better data set in that sense. Not discounting your voice. I will continue asking poll questions on Spotify, but that was my reasoning, if you will. So there are your comment sections for the podcast. Let's get into the emails real quick. There's one kind of on the longer one, but I think it generates a phenomenal conversation. And again, we will be getting into all things 4.0. So let's get into the emails. I do not open these emails because of doxing reasons. I'm going to continue to have that disclaimer when I open these up. So we have Prime Entity, send a screenshot. Let me just address, like, I'm going to repeat myself from like 87 episodes. I only go to RSI, the RobertSpaceIndustries.com website, or Spectrum, any official platform. That's the only place I go for information. So when you listen to my podcast, it is the source of truth. It is coming from the horse's mouth, nowhere else. That usually means that I'm later to some news. It usually means I don't talk about leaks. It usually means I turn my shoulders, or I face away from clues that might be happening. I just don't like getting into other people's crap, right? So Prime Entity sends me a screenshot. Nothing wrong with what they're doing. That wasn't a hit at Prime Entity, but it's from King Kong -mag, some random link, and it just quotes that the open world space simulation Star Citizen has been completed, at least in part. It is Squadron 42, yada yada yada. It's not complete. It's not complete. I don't think there's any surprise there. We had this conversation last night. Is it alpha? Is it beta? Is it early access? I don't know. At some point, we just need to stop caring. CIG is going to be doing what they want, and I think we've learned that there's no rhyme or reason sometimes into what they're calling things and why they're doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that. They have every right as a business to do what they want to do. So they say that there's still an alpha you can play now, early access. So I don't know, I call it an alpha early access, combining two different ideas into one, but no, it's nowhere near complete. We know 1.0 is when it's going to be considered complete, quote unquote. We're nowhere near that. I don't think we'll be in 1.0 until obviously after Squadron 42, so 2027 or beyond. All right, we do have a Sean Donovan. This is kind of the longer one, but again, I think it's a great question. I'm going to read it and answer very quickly so we can get on to the rest of the show. But all right, here we go. Whew. Okay, since I'm being hindered by Spotify's super low character limit, I've decided to send you an email instead. Keep in mind, this is a very long section of text. I don't expect you to read and respond to all of it. Feel free to pick winners and losers. I think it's all great questions, though. All right. Speaking of hangars, I think it'd be better if we could purchase different size rooms at different luxury levels. I'll stop there. Absolutely. I think I've said that in a couple episodes ago, but I think it's a way for them to spend money, right? If we want real life money, CIG can make modules for your hangar nodes. We're going to know all about this whenever base building comes online. Base building, there's going to be modules. There's going to be different levels of interiors and exteriors that you can build. We saw that hinted and teased in CitizenCon, so we'll know. Now, whether or not that translates into living in your hangar, I truly think the hangar spawning is very temporary. I think they're just doing it for the sole purpose of helping the bottleneck when people are logging into 4.0, but I think it goes away. I don't think that we need a solve for living in a hangar. I think it's a good idea. I think it's kind of a fun thought, but I think they're really going to put all their eggs in the basket for on-planet side and eventually in orbit base building. All right. When it comes online, there may be a serious conflict between the safety of hangar homes and the beauty of frontier homes. If you had to pick, which would you choose? I think I've already answered that. I don't like the idea of living in my garage. So, like I just said, I don't think that's even an issue. I don't think they're going to create the base building inside of hangars. But if I had to choose, of course, I would live. Actually, I would live on a planet before I would live up in space, which is funny because the end game for orgs is an orbital station base. But I still would prefer, I think, living. I don't know. I think like Star Wars. Like I think of like Luke Skywalker, right? Like living in a little tiny location planet side and then going up in space whenever I need to or want to, right? Okay. Will we ever see combat mechs in Star Citizen? Yes, we've already seen that teased. Actually from CIG channels, so we know that there's going to be combat mechs in Star Citizen. Yes. Speaking of Drake, anybody who's listened to your podcast for more than 2 episodes knows you hate Drake ships. Do I? Hate is such a despise. I think despise is a little softer and more accurate. I despise Drake as an aesthetic. But can't stay away because of their exclusive functions and quote-unquote charm. If you could make copies of Drake ships in a different manufacturer with different designs, but the same function and use, which manufacturer would you pick? Okay. So, and he goes, you picked Crusader, didn't you? So Crusader is a very good option. I don't know. I'm really digging MISC. Yeah, I'm really digging MISC. Not Freelancer, the Star. Is it Starlancer? Why does that not sound right? I think Starlancer. I love their mechs. I love where they're going with it. Obviously, the whole C, D, E, when those come on, the whole E is going to be phenomenal as a capital ship for cargo. I think Misk is actually a really good backup, in my opinion. They also have the Misk Prospector, so they're already doing things beyond cargo hauling. So why not throw in other Misk, ships as well? I do think there's an interesting Mirai having this kind of a GT level, or the Shelby tag on a Ford Mustang. I think Mirai having that would be kind of fun. It'd be exciting to have a super cargo hauler that, I don't know, I'm getting creative now. But having a workhorse that has the Mirai flair to it, the extra level of attention and quality, I think that would be really cool. And then we go, because no one told me there were alien creatures on planets now. Yes, there are. I freaked the F out thinking it was a player when I was playing the other day. Let me know what you mean by alien creatures, because right now we are aware of 3, right? The Maricopian, and now we've got the space cows. I'm tracking those 3. I think the rats also were released as well. So I'm tracking the animals. But when you say you thought it was a player, tell me more. I want to hear about it. All right, here we go. Last comment. Just a random thought. You should have a section on the podcast where you talk about all the new things added in the most recent patch, if there is one. I don't mean listing all the fixed bugs. I mean stuff like new ships or armor sets. I don't track things like it, and it'd be amazing to hear them during the podcast. I understand if you decide not to, because each episode is already getting a bit long as it is. Yes, they are getting a bit long. Hour and a half, 2 hours. That's pretty long for a podcast when it's literally just myself most of the time. It's not that I omit it. I'm trying to put the most value per word. How's that for a KPI, key performance index? I don't know. Yes, the items are sexy. It's super awesome whenever we get new. The Mirai racing suit is being teased right now to launch soon, because we saw it in the trailer for the Guardian. So there's all these kind of cool things to hit on, but I don't know. I think it's more for me, the tech is so much more important. Ships, we have over 150 freaking ships. The gear is, I don't know, they come online, but then they kind of get forgotten about. Who's still talking about, the day one, the gear set. How many people are wearing their Xenothreat gear from the last Xenothreat event? So these are all I don't know. I put less stock in some of those conversations. Not that it doesn't matter. It's just value for my words. Let's get into the polls. Some of these polls will start bleeding into the concepts or the segments for this podcast. So I think this still applies beautifully. Sharing my screen for those of you on YouTube. Let's do this first one. So again, 485 votes. It's the difference between a Spotify poll and an X poll. But over 3,000 views, 485 votes. I asked about ship naming. Where the hell is ship naming? Where is it? I know they've put it on the back burner because there's more important things to do with ships than just putting names on the sides. But man, I love everything about naming my ships. I'm proud of what I name my ships. I love having the Beyond, the Elegance of the Void, the Munchies, the Breach, the Frontier. I love having those. It just sounds cool. It puts that immersion and that uniqueness into the game, 100%. But you can only do it for 6 ships. And then I learned recently that the Gladius and the Corsair, if you pledged at a certain time, you could also name those. So we'll say 6 officially, but maybe a little bit more. Out of 150? It's what's the future of ship naming? I want to have a dev on here and ask, what is the future? Can all ships be named? Only capital ships? What is that going to look like when 1.0 drops? But here are the responses. So the must-have, nice-to-have, it doesn't matter to me, or preferred that they didn't. Again, 485 votes, 41%, 41.9% said they must have the ability to name ships. Right? Almost half of the answers. You must have it. 40.4% said nice to have. It's cool. It's cool to have it if I can. So maybe a less of a concern there. And then a doesn't matter to me. This is your nonchalant, don't really care. Even if I had the ability to, probably wouldn't. And then a 15.7%. And then at 2.1% was preferred that they didn't. That was more for like, I don't know why anybody would vote for preferred that they didn't. You really, you don't want to have immersion. You don't want to have uniqueness to your ships. That's fine. I would love to know why. I would love to hear why. Somebody would like adamantly be opposed to not having names on ships. So there's your first poll. What are your thoughts? Again, the comment sections are completely open for any sort of reaction, so feel free, have at it. The next poll. All right, here we go. We're starting to get into 4.0. So Monday happens. I usually on Mondays before This Week in Star Citizen, the official article comes out. I have these like predictions. I look at the tea leaves. I read Spectrum. Good Lord. And I try my best to get like an idea. I decided to ask a poll on Monday. And again, if you heard my last episode, I was pretty sure that they were going to launch 4.0 before this episode. I said that was the last episode of any updates. So that's exactly what happened. But I wanted to know, as far as the community goes, would 4.0 come out this week? Would 4.0 come out next week, the week of Christmas? Or do people still believe that it was going to come out in 2025? And you can see the results. 3,465 views, 654 votes, big poll. 45.3% said it was coming out this week, and you were right. They were right. But look at number 2. 32.4% still believed, a third still believed that they were going to push 4.0 into next year. I mean, some people, and this is not, if it was you, it's not judgment. I'm not mad at you. I don't think you're wrong in thinking this way, but it's so pessimistic. Like everything and everybody was telling you it was coming out before the year end. Jared Huckabee comes on Inside Star Citizen. You were hearing the devs on Spectrum. If like you're doing things beyond social media, you're hearing that it's coming. I mean, we had a patch every day. Every day 4.0 got this updated EPTU patch. That cadence means something, right? Like they're doing 2 patches in one day. I think yesterday or 2 days ago they had a patch in the morning, and then they pulled it back and had a patch in the afternoon. You don't do that if you plan on pushing this thing until next year. So, I don't know. 22.3% said next week. I didn't think they were going to launch it next week. There's like this fun pie-in-the-sky idea that it was going to come out on the 12th day of Luminalia. So thank you, Steel, for that one. It makes sense. I mean, they did it 7 years ago when 3.0 dropped on December 23rd. So why not happen, for this year? But I didn't think it was going to happen next week. Too many hot fixes, too many needs for CIG developers to hang around. This at least gives us time to put some hot fixes in before the break. So there's that poll. Let's get into the next one. Here's your conspiracy theory. So again, thank you, Steele, for this amazing conspiracy theory. 1.9k views, only 277 votes, but I asked exactly that. Do you think it's going to come out on Luminalia Day 12? Because 3.0 released on December 23rd of 2017. Why not? And 71.8% said that we were on to something. 28.2% said not a chance. There you go. Last poll. Okay. This is going to make more sense in a couple of minutes when we go through the letter from the chairman. So letter from the chairman announces that we're going to have simultaneous live platforms or builds. We'll get into the whys. We'll get into what that means. But I asked the question, which one? Which one are you going to keep on your hard drive? It's already 112 gigabytes for one game. So if you want to run both, you have to have 2 times 112 gigabytes. I know a lot of you out there have like 5 tetrabytes worth of hard drive, but some of us only have room for 1 or 2 of these games. So we have to prioritize. My question is, are you keeping the 324.3 live? Are you going into the 4.0 preview? Are you going to be doing both? And then out of a extreme humor, I put, what is happening? Help. Because this was confusing. This was confusing to a lot of people, right? So 1.5 thousand views, 467 votes, 77.7% said, F it, we're going into 4.0, ripping off the Band-Aids, get into the new patch, right? 7.1% said they're keeping both, right? Keeping both. Then you've got 12%. Well, I kind of went out of order. 12% said, what is happening? Help. They kind of did not have an answer. They wanted more information. So hopefully this podcast helps answering some of those questions. And then the last 3.2% said they were going to stay in 324.3 live. Here's my, we'll get into the details here in a second. But why would someone stay in 324.3? I know it's theoretically more stable, but why would you not get into 4.0? It's considered live. Everything persists. The build 4.0 preview, when they merge and they become one live platform again, it'll persist from 4.0. It won't persist from 324.3. So everything you're doing in 324.3 is not going to count for anything. So go into 4.0. Just do it. Very curious there. All right. I am going to pause everything. I'm going to get some drink. I'm probably just going to keep this going because it's a podcast. I don't care. I'm dying. My throat hurts and everything else is just happening all of a sudden. So give me a second. Ugh. Classic. Okay. This Week in Star Citizen. We're going to get through This Week in Star Citizen, some low-hanging fruit when it comes to news. So an RSI launcher update. We'll quickly go through the Galactopedia. The Q&A Anvil, the Paladin, that was launched, but we're not going to go through all the Q&A, but we're going to talk about that stuff. And then, of course, we will get into 4.0. So let's do this. This Week in Star Citizen. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the final This Week in Star Citizen of the year. What an incredible journey 2954 has been. From unforgettable moments to groundbreaking milestones, we've shared so much, and we can't wait to continue this adventure with you in 2955. As always, thank you for being such an essential part of bringing your shared universe to life. As we celebrate the closing chapter, Luminalia remains in full swing. Don't miss out on claiming your daily free gifts from the Luminalia calendar. Every day brings a new surprise, so be sure to check regularly to see what festive treats await. The best gifts are the ones you give, and we're celebrating the spirit of Luminalia with our ongoing video contest. Get creative, spread some holiday cheer, and you might just be rewarded for the new ship or with a new ship for your efforts. Submissions close on January 7th, 2025, so don't wait. And finally, we're standing on a threshold of something special. The long-awaited Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 is just around the corner, and we can't wait to embark on this next chapter of Star Citizen with you. Stay tuned for additional details as we prepare to jump into a bold new era together. Go to the bullet points. Just like I said, we have the Galactopedia Update 4.0 Patch Watch with the Economy Facelift. And then today, we have an RSI Weekly newsletter, and I'm sure much more will drop today with the 4.0 launch. All right. Fast and furious. Okay. RSI Launcher 2.1.1, sharing my screen. I'm just going to talk about fixing the issues. It fixed the issue preventing download progress from displaying correctly in some scenarios. Boom. Done. There's still some known issues, but it also changed aesthetically. So here's like a screen that you can see if you're watching us on video. It's just more pyro based. So it's got, I don't know which station that is. I want to say that that's a Ruin station, but it's got one of the stations in the background. So instead of like the bluish, greenish themes of Stanton, we've got the dark reds and browns of Pyro. So aesthetically it's changed. It's fixed some download progress issues, but mainly a facelift for the RSI launcher. Galactopedia updates. The long article was about Jerry Labanu. And and I think it's Njeri. So we call them Jerry, but I wouldn't even know how to pronounce that in Banu, the Jerry. But that's about Jerry. Then we got, of course, the 20 short articles. But just let me just read the little paragraph here. This month we celebrate Jerry, the first Banu to make contact with humans, and delve into some of the clothing and armor companies that keep the verse in style. Right? So if any of that interests you, feel free to go through it. I made a comment earlier that all eyes were going to be on the economy. So the patch watch, the economy notes, that dropped the same day as the Galactopedia update. And I made the comment, all eyes were going to be on that. Because 4.0 is new. It impacts everybody. The economy is a super hotly debated topic. But I had a lot of individuals accuse me of not caring about lore. And I just want to be very clear that I play games because of lore. So no, that is factually inaccurate. I love lore. I have put lore on the back burner because right now we're developing a game of technology that no one has seen before. So again, that value per word that I was talking about, I'm really trying to focus on the development of Star Citizen, and that is what really matters to me in this current moment. Now, when we launch into 1.0 and we're, all cylinders are firing off, I think that would be something fun to fall back on. So all the tech is done. There's not really anything tech related to talk about. Now let's start getting into lore and diving into that. So it's more of a pause. It's not that I don't care. It's not that I'm prioritizing anything over lore. It's just paused because there's so much other stuff to talk about. I hope that makes sense. Ooh, I will make it through this. I promise. All right, the Animal Paladin. So nothing really new here as far as, we all knew about the Paladin, all the information, the article, commercial, all that came out during IAE. But this is the Q&A. So if you wanted to get in here and go through what is the loaner for the Paladin regarding VTOL, how does it handle an atmosphere compared to the Valkyrie? Is there an engineering room? Does the Paladin offer escape pods for its crew? How does it compare to the Redeemer? When will the Paladin start production? I think it's already in white box. Yep, Paladin is currently in his white box phase, so there's one of the questions answered for you. What about the cargo grid, gun racks, lockers, sizes, capabilities? So if you bought the Paladin, you're super interested, there's a great Q&A section here. Maps of how the interior and exterior are. So it even goes through, can you explain the purpose of rooms 6, 5, 8, and 9? So it's good. It's a good article, but if you are interested in the Paladin, I think this will give the Redeemer and the Valkyrie kind of a run for their money. I don't know where yet it's going to fall. I think it's in that general conversation of dropship, gunship, and how it's going to be actually utilized in the verse. So, I don't know. I had bought one to kind of obviously mess around with it and get used to it because I want to be able to speak to experience and not just what I'm reading. But I don't know where it lands yet. So I'll be reading this, I'll be getting into it, and of course, hopefully in the next couple of months it'll actually release. But it's in white box phase. We have some time. Okay. Letter from the chairman. Okay, how do we want to do this? Give me a second. I'm going to drink. Hopefully my throat will allow me to talk through some of this. It's that Christmas crud, right? How many of y'all are sick during Christmas? Every Christmas, there's something that happens to me. Okay, letter from the chairman. This is Chris Roberts coming out kind of early afternoon, early evening last night, letting everybody know that this was happening. 4.0 preview was happening, but it was also pretty surprising. We didn't know that there was going to be 2 live simultaneous builds, happening at the same time. We didn't know that it was going to be called 4.0 preview. It kind of makes it feel like it didn't actually launch. You would think it'd be live if it launched, or PU, like 4.0 PU. But it's 4.0 preview. And this is actually why a lot of the salty content creators and backers have immediately said they failed. 4.0 never launched. It didn't launch in 2024. And they're going back to this article to basically say it's still the EPTU. I mean, nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is the persistence of what you do now in 4.0's EPTU, quote unquote, will now transfer over whenever the builds merge. I can see that. I can see that sentiment. But that is also just a very distorted, like pessimistic view of what's actually happening. So go with me back to 3.18. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Go with me back to 3.18. When 3.18 launched, we didn't have anything to fall back on. 3.18 launched and all hell broke loose. The game was unplayable, pissed off half the community, lost everybody. People went off and did other games. It was just a horrendous experience. And so, I don't know, I wish we had this setup in 3.18 where you could fall back on 3.17, where you had the option of going to a more stable build. So I personally am okay with this. I'm fine with them having the 4.0 preview, but keeping 3.24.3 around for, I would say for security, for stability. I don't think 4.0 is going to crash and burn. 4.0 has been quote unquote live for months now, and it hasn't been, game breaking. We've been able to get 500 people on for quite some time now. A couple of small little, things that they've had to fix. The relocation issue was an actual issue, really affecting everybody. All this is true. But I don't think it's any different than what currently is the live build, the 3.24.3. There's still issues. People are dying from elevators. I don't see the potential of 3.18 happening again. Have I been wrong before? Yes. But I think we're in a different place. But we have the backup of 3.24.3 now. I don't see that as a bad thing. I really don't. So I'm not necessarily going to go into the article and read word for word, mainly because I feel like I'm dying, and I'm sorry for that. But that's the first part of this article. Chris Roberts gets in and says you're going to run 2 live releases in parallel. That's basically the main concept of the first half of this article. So you're going to have both. And then the second part of this article is about going into 2025. I think this is the piece that I wish people would kind of hang their hat on and be happy with. Ever since I have been associated with, and I realized I wasn't sharing my screen at that time, everything that I've heard since being associated with this game, so 3-4 years, has been just get what is currently out stable. Don't really care about new features, new ships, new locations. I just want to run a damn delivery mission with a box and deliver it and it work. Or cargo hauling. I want my whole sea to actually load gear and be able to go from planet to planet and drop the gear off. Like, I just want things to work. Well, you're getting your wish. Chris Roberts here under 2025, a focus on playability, is saying exactly that. The focus moving forward is to improve playability. And that is good. We should take that and we should say the quality of life improvements expected in 2025 should be welcomed. Now, does that mean it's going to slow down base building? Is it going to slow down 1.0? Is it going to slow down, the creation of Nix and some of these other systems? Maybe, but I think with what we are currently playing, it would be nice if it worked. Because when this game works and it's flawless, in my opinion, there's no better game out there. I've been playing Path of Exile, freaking love it, but that is like an adrenaline shot for the whole time you're playing. If you're playing for an hour, you are on steroids for a full hour, and it gets to you, right? Like, I'm done after playing a round or a session of Path of Exile, and I'm exhausted. But like Star Citizen has it all, especially when you throw in contested zones in 4.0 that we'll talk about here in a second. But especially when you start throwing in some of these other things, there's so much to do, and you can be as hectic and adrenaline shot as you want to, or you can be as chilled as you want to. I have literally had sessions playing this game where I woke up from my hab, I went down to the food court, got myself some cruise to put in my backpack, ate a freaking hot dog, double decker, right? Hot dog, double dog, and went and did like a Luminalia delivery mission. It was done. An hour worth of playing, and I was like, cool. That was so like that's what I needed in that time, in that moment. and there's no other game that can really give me that. And then I could do org nights with my org and have 30 people on doing save stand, just pure chaos. When this game is operating and it's fully functional and we don't have any issues, it's worth it in my opinion. I don't need another Pyro. I don't need another Nyx and all these other systems. I don't need that. I don't. I probably will spend very little time in Pyro. Why would I need to go there? So make what currently exists work. I think we're all in agreement. There's really nothing else to get into from this article. There's a couple of infographics. It's just, what does the duality look like? What does it look like when the two systems are operating simultaneously? And then he goes and says, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for all the progress and success and everything else. And you have a cute little picture of Chris Roberts. So I think in this moment, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching it, I think here's where you can make your decision as a consumer. You can pick your content creators or your podcasters, your YouTubers, and this is human nature. You want the affirmation, you want the validation of your feelings. If you want there to be this uplifting, positive, vibe, and what I said resonates with you, cool, you're in the right place. I got you. I got you. We are vocally critical when the time comes and it's necessary. But I got nothing bad from this article. I like the idea of having a backup. I like the idea of stability going into next year. What you see is what you get, in my opinion. Or the other side of that coin, if you want those feelings validated, there are other content creators who took this and said they failed. And so if you're in the camp of wanting to hear about failure and CIG sucking and Star Citizen being a horrible game, this is not the place for you. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for the engagement. Blessings on the rest of your life. Go have fun. I just don't see it. I don't see where that sentiment comes from. I am very happy with 4.0 and where it's at now. Can't understand it. Not saying you're wrong, just can't understand it. All right, let's get into some of the sexy stuff. Here we go. Alpha 4.0. Again, this is all very new to me. It dropped at 11 p.m. last night. I went to bed. I'm a responsible husband and father. So here I am looking at this basically for the first time. I'm kind of hoping for a video so I can recover like this. So here's Destination Pyro. Excuse me. Alpha 4.0. It's got some cool infographics. It's got, a lawless frontier awaits. None of this is going to be new for anybody who's been listening to this podcast. You know what's on this this drop, but you got Pyro as a whole entire system. You got the Guardian that did drop. You've got the contested zones as a new game loop that's there inside of Pyro. So 3 main categories to go and explore and do. You got the video here. Thank God. I'm going to go on mute. I'm going to take care of myself. But here's the Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 Destination Pyro video. Let's get into this for my sake.
I'm going to build a universe. It's a huge amount of work. I'm hoping that a lot of you want to be in this universe, because I do.
Once the assistance and the server meshing is in place, that's the big development effort.
Where we're going in the future, we're going to need a bigger universe that you can just escape into.
see, the rats are released. Now in preview. Yeah, I mean that video, I don't know if it does it for you, but that video gives me the chills. Like hearing the Chris Roberts promise of the technology and just that huge step forward or leap forward in technology. Server meshing is now live. We've been waiting for server meshing forever. It's incredible. It's crazy to know how far we've come. And then to just see the myriad of new things to do around the verse. Like, the contested zones are going to be fun. They're going to be interesting. I think there's some questions on, like, Star Citizen's identity and if this is the path forward and how we want Star Citizen to become. But I love it. I love the options. I love having the option to do it if I wanted to. And I think that is where some gaming developers or some studios run into this, like they're almost too focused on this is my identity, this is my brand, we're not going to expand and do other things. Star Citizen's like, cool, people like Call of Duty, so we're gonna create an arena and we're gonna have Call of Duty basically happening. People like racing, so we're gonna be throwing in racetracks, and it's all happening in this live PU with server meshing. I welcome it, but that video is a good 4-minute video that encapsulates what this means to the development and what it means to us as the gamer. So there's my little emotional response to that video. I freaking love it. Now again, I have no idea what I'm clicking on. This next one says Lawless Frontiers. It's a video. I don't know if it's an actual YouTube video or if it's just music, but here's Lawless Frontiers. Yeah, it looks like it's just a rotation of quick little B-rolls. So we've got some orbital stations, we got planet sides. Beautiful. I'm imagining that's what all these are. Server meshing, this is, again, I don't want to understate server meshing, but server meshing is just more people. I know. I just pissed off half the community. Server mesh, okay, let me just try to, all right. You have a single shard, one shard to rule them all, right? You have one shard. One shard is then divided into DGSs, dynamic game servers. You got servers that make up the shard. Stay with me. So one shard, you got 4 servers that are in Stanton. You've got 6 servers that are in Pyro. So the idea of a server not being completely bogged down with 500 people, it can now manage just those that are locally or like geographically tied to that server. So if you think about it, it's a server per planet. So the Crusader is on its own server. So you're in Crusader, it only needs to render. It only needs to service those few people that are in Crusader. Right, so 4 DGSs for Stanton, 6 DGSs for Pyro. The whole shard has a head count cap of 500. So that's why we say the ratio is 4, 6, 500. That is server meshing. Now, we're not at dynamic server meshing. That's static server meshing. Dynamic server meshing is when that shit moves around. Done. I'm not getting into it further. That's a whole other podcast. But just imagine what I just said, and it moves. Done. So server meshing, huge technological advance. Other games do it, but not at this scale. Not at this scale. All right, making the jump. This is such a phenomenal. Just watch the video. But the jump sequence is something you've never experienced in any other game. It's not. So going from Stanton to Pyro and any other future system is done through these jumps. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's so sexy. It's such a great experience, but it's also involving. You actually have to fly yourself through the jump point and avoid pillars and avoid the walls, or you'll get kicked out in some random location. So I don't know. This is just such an accomplishment. It's such an achievement, in my opinion, that really just makes you feel like you and your team are going through something huge together. The factions of Pyro, there's 2, 3, I don't know. There's 2 major ones that you can align yourself with. The Citizens of Prosperity is one, and I'm trying to remember who the second one is, but let's just read the article. Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready and the Citizens of of Prosperity. I think those are the 2. I think. Hold on. Here's what the article says. Pyro has long been abandoned by the mining corporation that gutted any worth from its planets, but the industrial platforms remain, and now in the hands of competing factions, from the righteous Citizens of Prosperity to the terrorist Xenothreat gang. But I don't think you align yourself with Xenothreat. I think you align yourself with like Rough and Ready or one of those. Anyway, each station has its own rules to live by and challenges to take on. 2 of the orbital stations that you can join are Rough and Ready, and one is Xenothreat. So there's just, I don't know, it's a combination of a bunch of different gangs and factions and who you can align yourself with. But the mission givers that you can align yourself with are those 2. I just have to remind myself. Test your metal. This is the video on contested zones. The gangs that control Pyro stations typically keep your violence under control, but in the fringes of the station, it's weapons free and anything goes. Explore the depths of these contested zones. Fight for unique loot, and maybe even discover more about those executive hangars. So pretty cool. Can't wait to get into that with my org. Hidden dangers. Another relic of Pyro amalgamated. The company's left behind asteroid bases await brave explorers. Find a way in. Find a way in and go deeper to uncover secrets, loot, and more. Some citizens claim to have found abandoned executive hangars built into certain asteroid bases, but none have ever made it past the front door. Interesting. This is going to be fun. As you can see, there's like puzzles, loots, and things to go and jump in and explore. So again, more fun things to do in Pyro. Here's the Guardian. We're about to get into the commercial and the Q&A for the Mirai Guardian. Also on TikTok and on X, I did a quick little interior exterior walk around so people can see what it looks like with the Sovereign livery, the concierge livery. So very cool. I love the. Well, let me just say this now. I'll say it now. It is one of 3 heavy fighters. I think it was like the Ares Inferno, Scorpius, and now this guy. But it's the only heavy fighter, and actually just one of the only fighters that has a bed you can bedlog. And that is huge to me. One of my turnoffs when I have 30 minutes to play for doing bounty hunting is that's going to take too long for me to get into my ship from an orbital station, go do my thing, and then come back to the orbital station because I can't bedlog. Now I can in a formidable ship like the Guardian. And the cool thing about this is it's basically the F-8C Lightning, a little less capable, but a lot more agile. So if you want the ability to outmaneuver your opponent, but still have pretty phenomenal size 5 firepower, this is your baby. And it's a good looking ship. Again, a heavy fighter, a solo heavy fighter that has an interior. Done. I did buy myself one, 100%. There's also a QI model, and I'm going to say QI. However you want to pronounce it, don't care. I'm going to call it the QI model. It stands for quantum interdiction. So that basically is a quantum dampener and an interdiction model of the ship. Obviously a good option, only $10 more expensive so 240 as opposed to 230. Of course, 4.0, like every other patch, it drops with certain vehicles that are accessible, a lot of exploration vehicles, things that you can upgrade to. This is dropping with 17 vehicles, the 400i, C8X Pisces Exploration, the Carrack, the Corsair, the Cutlass Black, Cutlass Blue, Cutlass Red, Cutlass Steel, Cutter Rambler, Cutter Scout, Freelancer Dur, the Guardian, of course, Guardian QI, the Starfarer, the Zeus Mark II, the Zeus Mark II CLNES, and the 400i. The special is the Anvil Carrack, so a lot of people don't know this, but the Anvil Carrack got some upgrades as well. So now the cockpit has a blast shield that you can deploy, and it covers up the majority of the cockpit. I think that's more aesthetic. I can't imagine it actually really helping you in combat in this current mode. But as it's an aesthetic, it's a cosmetic, it looks great. But more importantly, it's got garage doors now that open, or it has cargo doors that now open. Albeit they don't open to the floor, so it still makes it almost impossible to use for cargo. But the doors open, they're functioning now, so pretty cool. So now might be the time for you to get back into your Carrack. It's one of my favorite ships in the game. Absolutely phenomenal. All right, let's see what's next on the agenda. Okay, so we have the release notes. Again, I don't... they did change the server meshing. This is actually huge. So it went from 4.6 to 500. I'm just now seeing this real time with you. The actual build for this 4.0 is different. It's 500. So 5 servers in Stanton, 5 servers in Pyro, and 500 player cap. It's a full wipe. You've lost everything, literally lost everything, all your ships, all your items, unless it's been purchased with real money. And your starting UEC is 20,000. The rest of this I'm not going to go through. You've been listening to this podcast. You know what the features and gameplay are. You know what's around. So yes, lots of information here. Go through it if you want to. There's still some known issues, but the news, real time, is that it's a different build than what we were seeing in the EPTO. 500. I might actually use that as a tweet after this podcast. Let's keep going. All right, so here's the actual Spectrum post for Destination Pyro. It's more of what we talked about, but if you are a link advocate like I am, you want your source of truth, you want to document where all this information is coming from, this is always super important to go and find the Spectrum article with these links to everything, trailer, patch notes, the economy facelift, which we're about to get into in a couple seconds, but the changes to the patch watches, all here for you to go through, to include a Pyro screenshot contest, which we'll wrap up with here in a couple seconds. So make sure you go save the Spectrum. It's under announcements, and all the information is there for you. Here is the economy facelift. Okay, again, I don't know if I'm going to go through all this. Like, this is a huge article. I did do kind of a summary on what this is, but at the end of the day, there's new economy balancing, there's new rewards for missions and how things are paid for, so I think that's old news for the most of you. There's new player creation, some new DNA types that were thrown into the player creator, so make sure you don't just copy and paste your new custom character over from earlier to now. Actually take your time getting in there and making those modifications. New tattoos, new piercings, all thing. Marker updates, huge, right? So huge. This is big for mining. You raised concerns about mineable markers, and we're happy to report that these issues have been resolved. So mining markers, huge. New materials in Pyro, right? So we have 10 silicon and ice, but rare materials, we have Stellaron and Recite. I don't know. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. But it's more rare than Quantanium. So that'll be probably a big reason why a lot of people go to Pyro, is to get that material that is quote-unquote even rarer than Quantanium. And there you have it. Those are the most of the notes coming from this patch watch. Let's wrap this one up on the beauty of Pyro, and then we'll get into the Mirai Guardian and end the podcast on the giveaway that I have promised everybody. So here we go. The beauty of Pyro screenshot contest. So this is to my org, the Dassones, the Grozas, all the other screenshotters out there. Take your screenshots, submit them, because you can win in first place the Mirai Guardian QI, the Mirai Guardian in second place, the Misk Starlancer Max in third place, and the Zeus Mark II ES in fourth place for having those quality, creative, rule adhering, and aesthetic screenshots. I took that right off the notes. So yes, plenty of opportunities to take amazing photos. Go do it. You might want to bring a friend with you because the shit's dangerous. I'm not slowing down. Here's the Mirai Guardian. I'm going to play you all the commercial. We're going to talk a little bit about it. I kind of already have in my thoughts. But let's get into the... I say the commercial. Here we go. Here's the commercial. These commercials are getting sick. What you saw a lot of in that video is the QI, and what's really sexy about that QI is it like has a spinal cord that actually lights up. It's the actual quantum. It's the actual quantum dampener, but it's very good. It looks like a spinal cord. It shines like this orangish glow. So just seeing that kind of animate and light up the back end of the vehicle is amazing. So very cool. Here are your options for colors. I'm just gonna leave it here on the screen. You got some red and whites, red and blacks. You got this black and yellow concierge, right? You got this kind of black and softer grays. I think that's the base for the QI. But yeah, you got some great color options. I obviously will always go concierge because most of the time the concierge paints are my color sticks, the black and golds, black and reds. I think that's a very good looking color scheme. The offerings, I'm going to go pretty quickly through these. I had a better view. Let me just do this. Store. This is what I do as you're seeing this happen real time. I just go to the Guardian and then it's automatically sorted by price, and this is how I look at it. So the cheapest option for concierge anyways, the cheapest option is $230. That's just the base Guardian plus the Sovereign paint. Again, $230. If you're not concierge, it's still $230 for the Guardian. I'm pretty sure it's still lifetime insurance. Yes, still lifetime insurance. So base $230, and then you've got the QI for $240. So is it worth the additional $10? Who knows? I don't put a lot of stock. I don't put a lot of stock in quantum dampening. That's just really not. I haven't really gotten into that play loop yet to really have one opinion or the other. I know it's going to be crucial. I know it is crucial when you're doing these massive org battles and when you're trying to slow people down and make them not queue out. But I haven't needed it for solo play yet. But for $10 more, it's not that bad. You can also get the duo pack, so you can get both of them for $435. You have the concierge version, you have the non-concierge version, so it could be pretty expensive. Everything's war bonded. If you want it to come out of store credit, it's significantly more expensive. So the duo pack I was just talking about, if it's War Bonnet, it's 435. If you want to store credit it, it's 485. Pretty significant jump. So something to keep in mind there. And with everything else that launched, we also have the Q&A. Again, I don't necessarily want to go through every single one of these because some matter more than others. But what kind of operation or activities would be good use? I'm pretty sure you want to do bounty hunting, and again, because there's bed logging, I personally would also use it for any of the mercenary missions. Quite honestly, I think it'd be a good option. Long range heavy fighter, how does it compare to the Vanguard Warden and the RSI Scorpius? The Guardian seems slightly smaller in comparison to the Scorpius and the F8C Lightning because it's more maneuverable, it's more agile. How does the armor compare to its competitors? What are the advantages of using this heavy fighter over a gunship, right? I kind of want to read that. So I think like Redeemer is a really good gunship in this current moment. I know there's a lot of individuals that don't like the aesthetics of it, but I actually really do like the Redeemer's capability. But you have to have multiple people in order to really be successful with the Redeemer. But just to answer this question, why this over a gunship? Heavy fighters are typically crewed by 1 or 2 players, whereas gunships often require a larger crew. Alongside this, a heavy fighter usually has the majority of firepower in its forward direction with a secondary turret, whereas gunships tend to have a more 360-degree coverage of fire. So for me, it's more of, are you going with a team or a squad? If you're going with a team, jump in a Scorpius, jump in, a bunch of solo, like a solo ship like the Guardian. But if you're going in with a squad, like 8-9 individuals, or maybe a little less, then take a gunship. That makes total sense to me. Can the S5 guns be customized and swapped out? Yes, of course. Are the weapons gimbaled? The guns are gimbaled, with a firing arc of -15 to +15 in both yaw and pitch. So here's another conversation. You can get the QI and then just upgrade the S5s to the same capability as the base. So you have the base with a quantum dampener. Might be worth the $10. There you go. What ships will the Guardian fit in? It's always fun to do this. Both Guardians would need a ship. We need a ship with a cargo area of a 25 by 17 meter area with an entrance larger than a 17 by 8 meter. It doesn't tell you what, but like you could put these inside of a Polaris, like absolutely. The Guardian has 2 elevators, one leading straight into the Does it? The Guardian has 2 elevators, one leading straight into the cockpit and one leading to the rear of it. If I lose my power generator, how can I exit the ship? Interesting. I did not see the elevator coming out of the cockpit. I'll have to take a look at that. 100%. Does the Guardian have an escape pod? Yes, it does. It's the bed, which is kind of a neat concept. So the bed that you can log in and out of is also the escape pod. Cool. The rest of these, again, it matters if it matters to you. I think for me, do you need a heavy fighter? Yes or no? Okay. The answer is yes. Do you want it to be a solo, a 2-team, or a small squad capable heavy fighter? And I think that is what answers your question. If you want a solo heavy fighter and don't have an F8C, because I still would probably take a F8C, this is perfect for you. Visibility is great, even though I say that. Visibility is great, but you still have these massive freaking wings on both your port and starboard sides. So I don't know if your flank is really open, but you have great visibility, great maneuverability. I think it's right on par with the F8C, in my opinion. And then you got a bunch of questions about this dampener, right? Now you've got the QI. Let's just talk about the difference. Yeah, it's identical to the regular Guardian, aside from the addition of the quantum dampener and upgraded power plants. However, it does incur a small weight and cost penalty, and a quantum dampener is power intensive, requiring the pilot to balance its use with other weapons. So it might be worth the extra $10 A little bit more complicated, a little bit more, like they said, management for the pilot. But I don't know, for $10 extra, having the ability to lock someone in space, it's not a bad gig. And plus, I like that back end. I'll say it again, that spinal cord that you're looking at on the screen right now, it's pretty freaking solid. Pretty solid. All right, what do you say we get this giveaway secured? Let's do the giveaway, and we'll wrap this one up. I'm eager to get back into 4.0. I know you are too. Let's end on a really high note and give away some free shit. So this is again for the cutter, for the Ice Break Paint Livery, and the Star Citizen digital download. If you haven't heard me say this before, you're going to hear me say it a million more times. I do all of this in front of you. You see everything, because I don't want I want to be able to give free shit to my officers in sole provision. So if they apply for this, or they enter in and they win, I don't want to discredit them or to exclude them. So you're seeing me do this fair and square. I live in Excel. Judge me all you want. Here's the Excel spreadsheet. We had over 122 entries. And so again, in column alpha, I'll do what I've always been doing. I use the random equation, which throws out a random number. Now, every time I make edits to this, it'll update. So that means nothing to anybody at this current moment. I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to paste it as a text. And now it's locked into place. So now that it's locked in place, I am going to sort boopity boop by largest to smallest. It's Stillwicker Beast. This is my point. Stillwicker Beast is a super engaged individual in our organization, and I am going to enjoy the hell out of gifting him this giveaway. And you saw it firsthand, all you guys, all you people that are going to come out after me and say that I'm giving it to friends. You saw me do this fair and square. And in second place is Ruben Saris, a great friend of mine through the community. So I want to go on freaking record. None of you people out there judging me over here. But listen, to wrap this up, the final podcast before Christmas. So if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy 4.0. I hope it brings you the most joy, whether you go and explore and have a great time in Pyro, or you stay your happy ass like me and Stanton. I hope you find joy. I hope you find optimism, positivity going into 2025. I hope this finds everybody well. If you want to become part of the conversation or learn more about what we do, www.beyondtheversehq.com, or you can join our endgame organization, Soul Provision, through soulprovision.com. I hope this finds everybody well. Safe travels as you traverse Beyond the Verse. Take care, everybody.